Well, welcome, Nicole. We are here today with Nicole Flores, and Nicole has been at Envision for over 2 years now, right?
Yes.
Probably getting close to 2 years and a half.
Yeah.
I think you were one of the first members when we first opened at Envision, and you worked with a different coach, Caleb, back in the days, and then once Caleb parted ways, you started working with me. So I've been with you for just about 2 years.
Almost all
It's
time.
been quite a while, and it's been a very interesting ride. We've had a lot of conversations with each other, and I've gotten to know you quite a bit, and I have a lot of respect for you. I have a lot of respect for the amount of effort that you've put into your lifestyle change that you're trying to achieve. And seeing you as a mom and all the changes that you've made with your family, I want to say I'm very proud of everything that you've done. And I want to share your story because I think it's very interesting, and I hope that a lot of people out there can relate to. And like we were talking about earlier, I hope that somebody can connect with that story, and like you were saying, all of a sudden it triggers them to start asking questions and to start asking themselves like, oh, why do I act like this? Or oh, that actually happened to me before as well. And we go back to saying like it's about finding ways to connect with each other, and also realize that, hey, we're all in this together. We're all struggling to some degree, but we're also all trying to achieve something bigger. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask you a few questions, and we'll start like every other conversation that we start. Right? Let's go into let's start with why. What was the main reason why you decided to join Envision? And then we'll kind of go back into the storyline, and ask a little bit about your childhood as well. And so that way we kind of tell the whole story completely.
So when I had called you for an appointment, my second son was about 4 months old. And I was just at a point that I wasn't happy. I would wake up every day and I'd be crying in the closet because nothing fit me. Anything I would buy wasn't fitting right. It wasn't looking right. It wasn't making me happy about anything. I felt like I had no control over anything in my life at that point. I had, like I said, newborn at home. It was a few months into the shutdown of COVID. I had my older son was starting kindergarten, and we were going to do that at home on the computer. And so I was overwhelmed with that. I work as an x-ray tech in the hospital. And so just the whole COVID thing, and at that point not fully understanding what it was, and what was happening to everybody, it was very overwhelming. And I needed to get a grip on my life and what was going on with me. And I kept telling my husband, I said, I need to figure out what's going on. I need to focus on this. And you had actually trained my mother-in-law for a fitness competition.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
right.
my husband said, if anybody is going to be able to help you, it's going to be Christian. Like, reach out to him. And actually what happened was I messaged you on Instagram to set up an appointment, and I didn't hear from you on the appointment time. And to
Mm,
me, I'm always looking for excuses. To me, that was like,
mm,
okay, it wasn't meant to be.
mm,
And I went home to my husband, and he goes, "Well, how'd your phone call go? How is he gonna help you in it?" And I said, "No, he didn't answer." And he said, "Well, did you try to call him?" And I was like, "No, if he didn't call me, it wasn't gonna happen.
yeah.
That's how it was meant to be." And he's like, "No, you call him and you figure it out. Maybe he didn't. Maybe something happened." And like, okay, fine, whatever. So I called you, and yeah, you said like you didn't get the message or something. Like something, there was a disconnect.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember like talking to you on the phone and telling you like this is where I'm at, and you're like, okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out. If you want to do it, I'm here to help you. And that was like, okay, I have somebody who actually wants to help me and who is willing to listen to me, and that was me coming into the
Yeah.
gym.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to skip you. I know at the beginning when we first opened, And this is not an excuse, but it was a very interesting time because I remember it was just myself and I believe it was Jordan at first, and then that's when we brought in Caleb after. But the first like 90 days of Envision, it was like train till like 10 a.m. and then phone calls back to back to back to back to like 3 p.m. and then go back to training. And that was like 90 days straight. I remember I must have had probably like 200 calls and it was just seven to eight calls a day, and it was so stressful.
Yeah, I
So I'm
bet.
sorry if I missed your call, but I'm happy that your partner pushed you to call me again, and obviously fast forward to now, like here we are.
Oh yeah, I'm so happy. Yeah, but I know at that point it was like any excuse to not have to
Yeah,
do something. I'll grab it. But
yeah.
no,
So
I'm absolutely happy I did
so
it.
you came in, right, and so just to go back into what you were talking about with COVID, so you had a baby during COVID time,
Yeah, he
or
was
right
born.
right out of COVID, or
He was born 2 months into the shutdown.
okay, so this was in May.
Yeah.
That's right, because we had Luca in August, and so that was a very interesting time for the entire world, and obviously for new parents. Like that was. I remember when Luca was born, there was the fires going on at the
Mhm.
same time. So I remember that day. It was like I walked outside and it was ash everywhere. I'm like, so we have COVID, and then we have all this smoke that is happening. And so you work in the hospital,
Yeah.
right? And so what was that like for you during those times? Because you talk about you wanted to get a grip on yourself. What was the most difficult part for you during those times?
Um, I felt like I was trying to focus on myself, but it was like, okay, you're going into a patient's room, you're 8 months pregnant, and you don't know how this could affect you. You don't know how this can affect your baby. With the pregnancy, it was going fine. I was gaining a little bit more weight than I had in the first pregnancy. And with the second one, I had gestational diabetes as well as the first one. So my eating was completely off. I had gone into this pregnancy thinking, okay, I'm going to be better eating. That didn't happen. You know, it just, it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't as focused on it. And then, like I said, my other son, we were trying to get him into kindergarten. My plan was, okay, I'm going to have my second one. Ben will be in kindergarten half the morning so I can be with the newborn and kind of focus on him for a little bit. And for the shutdown, it was, okay, how are we supposed to do school now? How am I supposed to sit my 5-year-old down at a computer for the next 4 hours and try to teach him stuff?
Yeah.
And he's arguing with me, and I was like, everything was just felt so chaotic.
Right. So within months, you became a mom and a teacher.
Yeah.
And were you going to work at the same time, or did you take some time off work? Like how much time were you able to get off?
So before I had Owen, so the shutdown happened in March.
Mm-hmm.
My doctor took me out at the end of March,
Okay.
and that was more for my anxiety. It was freaking out at that point.
Yeah.
I had coworkers that were catching it. With X-ray, we're one-on-one with these patients doing chest X-rays. We're having to go into the rooms, having to put on the N95s and the PAPR suits, and we're right in there with them. Yeah,
baby.
and I was 8 months pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that gave me high anxiety, and I said, I don't know if I can be at work. Is there anything you can do? And she said, I'll take you out immediately. Don't worry about it. She's like, I don't want anything happening to you. Like I said, we didn't know how COVID would affect the baby at that point. And so she's like, I got you. You're out. I'll take you out immediately. And when I told her, like the next day I was out.
Okay.
So
Yeah, and that was like right when COVID kind of broke the news, right? Because I remember it was like March 19th. That's when like I remember we had easy preps at that time. And I also remember getting the call and saying, we shifted right away to like packaged proteins, and then same thing. It
Yeah.
was just like super stressful, and you know, there was all these restrictions, and we said, you know what, let's just shut it down. Like for us, it was COVID happened to be one of those things where we were extremely stressed out with the food industry, and it was a great excuse for us to get out and to just spend some time together as a family during that time. So it was great because Andrea was pregnant during that
Hmm.
time too. You know, she was what 34 months in, so we got the next few months off as well. And we did a lot of the workouts at the house, and I remember that was for us. But for you, so you have a baby in May, and your kid starts school in August. Is that
Hmm.
and how was that? What was you were you out this entire time? When did you go back to work?
Yeah, I was out of work about 6 months
Okay,
um,
so
after
May.
Owen was born
Okay,
in May.
so November you were
Yeah.
okay.
And so it was my husband and I had long conversations with my son. He didn't fully understand the days of the week,
Yeah.
so we said, okay, we're going to do an online school. I don't have to be on the computer at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. with a teacher. He can get on any time of the day he wants, any day. He just has to complete a certain amount of work within the week. And once a week, we meet with the teacher on Zoom. And his little class, there were like 3 other kids in his kindergarten class.
Wow.
And that was all. And he said, okay, so, I'd put Owen down for a nap, and that's when we're on the computer doing homework. And we're tag teaming it. My husband works nights. He comes home at like 9 a.m. He sleeps for maybe 5, 6 hours, and then he's up in the afternoon. And so I'm like, okay, now it's your turn to do homework with Ben. We're going back and forth. Because of COVID, I was very adamant on the family not coming around Owen, because like I said, I didn't know how it was going to affect him. So that put a huge strain on mine and my husband's relationship, because since I'm in the hospital and I see what's
Yeah.
going on with these patients, he doesn't necessarily see that, and so I have a different view on from the medical side, and he just sees, oh, they're just getting colds or whatever. It's
Right.
not going to affect him that bad, and I'm like, no, I don't want anybody to see him. So honestly, for like the first year and a half, Owen had only seen like my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and like just the in-laws. He hasn't seen the uncles and the aunts. Mind you, Derek's mom is one of 6. It's a huge family.
Yeah.
Some of the family still hasn't met him to this day,
Wow.
because we just haven't gotten together like we used to,
Right.
you know. But yeah, it was tag teaming every day. Okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And, mm, Derek and I have been together, I think it's 19 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we've been through a lot. So communication is really good between us. So when I say like, okay, I need you to help me with this, I'm going to be doing this, like, this is my expectation, like, we're really good at, okay, this is what I got to do. So I think that helped us out a lot in those first couple months of just trying to figure out how we're going to work this out.
Yeah, I mean, that has to be so difficult for a kid that's going into school for their first time,
Yeah.
right? Like, this is just to think that you're going to go on a screen and, obviously a school or a class of 3. And
Yeah.
that must have been, and do they get to see each other's faces, or was it like no face, just sound?
They saw each other. The teacher would do arts and crafts, so she'd email me and say, okay, we're going to do this painting. I need you to have these supplies ready for him. And yeah, they do a Zoom. They'd have every child on there. Or they do show and tell, make sure he has a toy or something that he can talk about to his class.
Yeah.
He only met one of them in person, and that just happened to be because they did a picture day, and they could go stand for their
Yeah.
picture in the classroom, and one of his other little classmates just happened to show up when we were there.
Wow.
And then for Halloween, they did a drive-through trick or treat for his little school. So we get to drive through with the kids in the back, dressed in their costumes, and they just handed candy through the window. Like
COVID was crazy.
it was.
COVID was a very interesting time. We did also have a drive through. What do you call it? Baby shower, and I was like, "Hey, here's your gift. Have a good day."
Yeah.
Right? It was obviously it took a toll on people, and you know, some of the things that we saw was just how people became separated. Right?
Yeah.
Opinions.
Yeah.
That was very difficult, right? Because we have families who are losing family members, and obviously we have other families who don't take it so serious, and all of a sudden there's this conflict between family and friends, and it was a difficult time for many people. And you have this baby, and then you're a teacher,
Yeah.
and then your husband works at night, so both of you are not really seeing each other throughout the day. When he came home and took over the schooling, were you sleeping? What was that like?
When he was doing schooling, I was with the baby.
Mm.
So, and then we'd just switch off. Um, but yeah, we weren't having a lot of like me and him time. It was
Right.
just, okay, we have jobs to do today. We
Right.
got to get stuff done.
Right.
Like, we're just focused on that.
Yeah. And then where does the food come into play during those times? Like, what was the household like when it comes to like chores, right? So we'll add more jobs, more hats, right? Like, what did the house look like when it came to chores, or when it came to cooking? Like, what was that like? Because obviously I know that a lot of people had this problem during this time, right? I heard it so much for the first couple years after COVID, right? I was doing so well, then COVID happened. I was doing so well, then COVID hit me, right? Or COVID, I was losing all this weight, and then COVID made me gain 30 pounds, 40 pounds. Um, what was that like for you? How did your house look? How did your food look?
I felt like our house was so chaotic. It was, if I think back on it, I think about the Zoom meetings for Benny, and I'd be like, okay, where can we position the camera so that they don't see the mess in the rest of the house?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, okay, thank goodness nobody has to come over. Nobody's coming over for dinner. The families, they're not coming because I was so strict on that. And so I was like, okay, well, nobody's going to see the mess we have, as I'm trying to figure out how to balance everything. Food, I mean, it was whatever I could grab, fast food that was open. It was easy stuff that I could just make in, 10 minutes. It wasn't anything good. I know that, like, after I had my first son, I lost a lot of weight and I kept it off for a good amount of time, maybe like 6 to 8 months. For me, that was good. With Owen, I didn't lose the weight like that, and I attribute it to a lot of the food that I was eating because I was so stressed. I'm a stress eater. The stress level goes up and I want the fatty foods, and my husband was not doing jujitsu at that time. He had stopped because of COVID. And he was affected too, and I could tell because he wanted the fast food. He never eats fast food. He didn't grow up eating that at all. Like, he jokes around, but it's not a joke. But I introduced him to the fast food. I was like, oh, let's go here, let's go there.
Yeah.
He had never been to certain ones,
Yeah.
and he was wanting it, and the kids want it. I was like, oh, it's easy. It tastes good. You know?
Well, high palatable food is always
I
tastes
know.
really well. Yeah, and I mean, when you think about it, like, when I talk to people about how COVID, or how they gained 30 pounds in COVID, it's very simple, right? If you think about it,
Yeah.
you had you were sitting at your computer, for those that worked at home. You were stressed out, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't help for weight loss. Doesn't help for anything else, right? It was emotional time, emotional eating, obviously overeating. You had access to food,
Yeah.
right? A couple steps, you just go to the pantry and
Absolutely.
you have access to food. And you stop moving,
Yeah.
right? So like even the commute to work, going to the car, getting up, doing this, you didn't have to. I know a lot of people didn't even have to shower, didn't have to do much. They just put on, if they had a Zoom meeting, they put something on and just, we saw all those videos of people standing up and not having pants on. But,
Yeah.
it was all of that. It was the stress. It was the emotions. It was the access to food. It was, just all the extra roles that people took on, especially parents with kids, right? They had to become teachers, and well, I mean, who's gonna be ready for that?
Yeah.
That you just get blind hit, and if you don't take a moment to sit back and analyze and think about what you need to do and create a game plan, fast forward 6 months later, you're like, oh my God, my house is a mess. I've gained 20, 30 pounds. First of all, most people didn't even realize because they weren't going
You
outside,
weren't going
right?
out, yeah. You
So
didn't have to
it's
dress up for
pajamas all day,
anything.
and and so that it explains it, right? It's pretty straightforward how easy it is to gain 30 pounds because COVID lasted a long time.
I did, yeah.
That was a long time, and I know that some people didn't really go out at all for even after the restrictions were off. They were just people went into panic and fear, and they wouldn't come out. So it makes a lot of sense. But so with you as you transition back into work, right? You went back to work and things just weren't right, and then because you came to us, I believe it was like in February or March, I believe.
Yeah, February.
So you had already been in work for a couple months already. What happened around there?
So I work mostly PMs.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in at 3:00 in the afternoon. I get out around 11:30. So I have the whole morning with the boys, and my morning is chaos. My morning is because Derek is gone in the morning until about 9 or 10. I'm the one who's waking everybody up, getting everybody breakfast, getting everybody dressed, making sure I have everything ready for work for later. Benny's still doing at home schooling, so I need to make sure he gets his 4 hours in before I go to work. I was breastfeeding, and then at work I was pumping. So I'm trying to make sure I have everything ready for that, making sure I've done the dishes the day before to be ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, I'm leaving. Do I have everything prepared for Derek to be able to deal with the baby and Benny's school and whatever needs to be done? And I'm at work and I'm getting text message after text message. Where's this? What about this? Where did you put this? And I'm like, okay, I'm at work. I have a patient right here. So it's not like I could just go to work and feel like everything at home is being taken care of because I didn't plan correctly, and I forgot about something, and it was a lot. And then coming back into the hospital, COVID's still in full force, and trying to learn how everybody has adapted to it and what's going on and with my schedule. And then I'm not planning my food properly. Obviously, I didn't know what planning food meant at that point. So I'm grabbing Panda Express on the way in and, or ordering Uber to bring me, McDonald's or whatever, whatever I could get my hands on. Yeah. Some nights I'm just so stressed I don't eat because I'm just having to go through whatever I need to do, to get the patients done. And I don't eat that night, or I don't eat till I get home at midnight, and then I'm binge eating whatever I can find, the chips or the cereal, and then I'm not sleeping right. And the cycle started again. I have to get up at 6 a.m. the next morning and try to do it again. Yeah. And it was just a spiral. Yeah. And then I'm angry at everybody. My husband tells me all the time, stop yelling. And I'm like, you guys make me yell. Nobody hears me, Yeah. But, it's a spiral effect. Everything's kind of caving in on me. And then the family's feeling it,
Yeah.
And like I said, like, I'm not reaching out to other family members for help because I'm so paranoid about what's going on with COVID. And yeah, I was one of those strict ones that I was like, nobody's coming over. If you even have any symptom, like, basically don't talk to me right now, And I was getting blamed as, sorry, the asshole, in the family, because they're like, Nicole doesn't want us to see the baby. Nicole doesn't want to come over, And it's like, I don't know. This is how I'm trying to handle it, and I don't know,
Yeah.
And I just needed some grip on something. I was like, I need a handle on something, and it needed to be me at that point. Mm-hmm. I need to fix what was going on with me to be able to make the whole family better.
Yeah, and so because you originally came in for weight loss, right? And so
yes.
Was that your first step in your head where you're like, okay, well, first I need to get this weight off? And what was that process? What was that thought process for you? What did you think you were going to get out of this?
I think for me, it's always been a number I've been chasing. I've been on different weight loss programs. I've been to different trainers. I've gone to Curves. I've done Weight Watchers. I went to this clinic here in town that gave me shots of, I have no idea what I couldn't tell you what they were giving me. They gave me pills, but I lost weight.
Yeah.
I got a quick fix.
Yeah.
But of course, when I got off, I gained it back full force, But I've always been chasing a number. I've always said, okay, I'm 5'1". This should be my number. That's what I've always heard. This should be my number. I'm way off from that.
Yeah.
And that was my initial, conversation. I was like, I need to lose weight.
Yeah.
I wasn't focused on everything else, even though that's what I should have been focused on. Like, looking back, it's like, everything else is what makes it. But yeah, it was always a number that I've been chasing.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it's the number for a lot of people, right? And during that time when we started working, right, I know that you had dropped some weight already when you got transferred over to me, and everything seemed to be going well. And then we kind of started having conversations, and I started digging a little deeper and starting to really understand the big picture. For me, it's always been, I need to understand the entire picture before I get you to lose weight, right? And I always talk about how people want it to be really fast. And yeah, there's a lot of very quick solutions, right? Be very strict and, follow a strict diet, you're going to lose weight, or eat less food for a long period of time. And yes, you will lose weight, but the problem that I constantly see is that they're temporary fixes, right? Because if we go back to the time that you lost all that weight through the pills and through the shots, do you remember the day that you lost? How much weight did you lose, first of all?
I went from about 180 down to 140.
Okay.
In a span of 4 months.
Okay. So you lost 40 pounds through shots and, I'm assuming they're appetite suppressants, if I know who you're talking about, and very low calorie diet, right? And so you're basically drugged to not eat more food, and then you're pumped with B12 shots so that you feel better. What was that feeling like when you lost the weight?
I was ecstatic. So I was like, okay, I'm seeing a number. It's working. Yeah.
Right. And then how long did that last?
Not very long. It was okay, because I got down to 140. That wasn't my number. That's never been my number in my head of where I wanted to be. But I couldn't get past that. For some reason, I was at a point that I couldn't get past it. And I gave it maybe 3 more months. And then we were leaving on a trip, and I never went back. And I was like, I'm done,
Yeah.
And I was like, this is frustrating. Why can't I get that number? I've made it this far. Why can't I get that number? But they weren't asking me questions like you do. They weren't having conversations with me. It was just okay, the next one come in. Let's, let's give you your shots, give you your pills. Go, Yeah, we'll take our money.
Yeah. Why did you not, what was the reason you didn't go back?
I think it's because it was I felt like I wasn't doing enough.
Okay.
Even though I was doing a lot. At that point, I was doing jujitsu like 4 times a day or 4 times a week, an hour. Right after that, I do a kickboxing. So I was working out
Mm-hmm.
and I was eating 1,000 calories a
Mm-hmm.
day of, you know, and I was taking everything that they said, but it wasn't working. And I was like, okay, but it's been working this whole time. So like, but they couldn't tell me like
Right.
how to fix that.
Right.
I'd say, okay, what do I do? No, you just do what you've been doing. Well, it's not working.
Yeah.
I'm not getting that fix that I want. I'm not
Yeah.
getting that number I want.
Yeah. Your body had adapted.
I was done.
Yeah. It's really hard to go down from 1,000 calories.
I know.
And okay, so you don't go back. You put on all this weight, and do so you felt ecstatic when you got the result, right? But when you first originally started to lose weight, like what was the reason that you were trying to lose weight? Was it because you looked at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I'm overweight? Was it because of what the doctor said? Or now looking back, do you think was because there was a lot of other areas in your life that weren't in place, and were you in a state of depression and you didn't realize that you were in that? What do you think? What do you think it was?
At that point, I was kind of in limbo. So I was going to Cabrillo. I was doing prereqs to get on the x-ray list. The x-ray list was like a 5-year wait list. When I graduated high school, they said, oh no, it's 2-year wait list. I was like, I could do that. Well, it wasn't true. It was a 5 to 6 year wait list. And I was working full time with my mom at her job and, doing admin assisting. And I was seeing all my friends and they're going off to like universities and finally getting their degrees and coming out and being able to work. And I was like, where am I? I'm living at home with my grandma. I'm waiting for however long, I don't know, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything. And so it was, okay, well, let's see if I can lose the weight. Let's see if I can figure that out, But it was frustrating because I was like, where am I? I was so lost at that point.
Yeah.
And, and they're like, oh, we can help you. We can help you.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah. So at that point, you feel a little bit lost and you find that quick fix, which is very, exciting.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people do it, right? But obviously a lot of other areas weren't addressed. And I think we found that out as you and I started to go on this journey it was like a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Right, because very interesting enough that when you were going through that, I was going through one as well, and I spoke in the other episode with Caesar about it, right? With the mentor that I was with, he was going through a lot of that with me because I was trying to grow my business and I was trying to fix issues in my family, and I wasn't able to do that until I started looking inward. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the kind of, what do we call them? A lot of the work that I was doing with him, I actually took and started applying it with you. A lot of the books that I read with him, I was able to apply those to you as well. And I remember giving you the Energy Bus, which was one of the first books that I read, right? And it talks about how you show up and how that affects on everybody else around you. Very good book and very easy read. And I remember, because you were talking about how angry you were too, and how all of a sudden you were just upset and you didn't understand why. And I remember I started with that book with you, and then your attitude started changing, because I remember when you were coming in, you were a bit frustrated once again because we had hit that point where like weight wasn't changing, right? And a lot of the times when weight doesn't change, even though it seems like you're doing everything, you're working so hard, there's also another side that you're not willing to look at and that we kind of look away from, right? We don't want to say like, I see it with a lot of clients where I'm following the plan, and I'm like, but they kind of forget to some of the other stuff they leave out, right? Like, oh, there was that one time that I did have a late night meal, and there was that one time that I had a drink, and there was that one time.
Yeah.
And realistically, those are the reasons why people don't lose weight, because they tend to overeat. But a lot of it is has to be with the emotions that are happening inside, right? The emotional eating, right? Because you went through a lot of emotional eating, and we kind of started digging deeper into your life and going back into your past. And we found out that when you went into, and I'll actually let you talk about it, right? We'll talk about your grandma's, was it your grandma's house, right? How you would go into there, and then you immediately would start overeating or eating the things that you weren't supposed to. But yeah, let's talk about a little bit about, so we tell the whole story well. Let's talk about your childhood, what it was like growing up, and how your grandma falls into this story.
So I was, my mom was a teenage mom. She had me when she was 16. She had my brother when she was 17. So she always worked 2 to 3 jobs to support us. We lived with my grandma. It was my grandma, my grandpa, my aunt, and my mom, and us 2, all in one house. But we were attached to my grandma the whole time. I called my grandma Mom, growing up, because that's who she was to me. My grandma is a true Italian grandma. She's cooking all day long. She's giving you your second plate before you finish your first one. She wants to make sure you're eating. So that's where, we got our nutrition from, is whatever she made, that's what you ate. My mom married my stepdad when I was about 6, and we immediately moved out, and she was still working her 2 jobs, but she was cooking, and it was really nice when we were little. We'd get huge breakfasts on the weekends, and she always had a big dinner. We always sat down at the table and ate dinner as a family. They got divorced when I was about 12. And immediately she was back to 3 or 4 jobs, and so me and my brother would come home from school and we'd have to fend for ourselves. And she wasn't making dinner for us. We weren't sitting down anymore. It was, okay, whatever you can get. So I ate cereal. I basically lived on cereal throughout my teenage years. My brother had some issues and it wasn't safe for him to be in the house with us anymore, so he moved in with my grandma. Go on about maybe 2 or 3 years. At that point, I was 16 and was told that he can't be with my grandma anymore. He has to move back in with Mom, and so I had to be at Grandma's house. And so at 16, I got pushed over to my grandma's house, and I lived there until I moved out when I was about 24. But Grandma was still Italian grandma. Grandma's making sure you're eating. She looks at me, and I've been a twig because I've been eating cereal this whole time by myself. She's like, you're too skinny. You need to get weight. And so she's pushing everything. I don't know anything at that point. I don't know anything about nutrition. I was just like, okay, Grandma, feed me whatever, I probably gained about 30 pounds, within the first couple of months of being at her house,
Was it pasta?
Of course. We
Tons
have
of
pasta,
pasta.
meatloaf, chicken parmesan. That's her specialty. But I was going through emotional stuff. I resented my mom for telling me that I had to go to Grandma's house, that she can't keep me there anymore. Even though I wasn't seeing her as often at home, but I felt like she was getting rid of me. That's the way I felt. And I had already felt that because I didn't know my dad growing up. My dad wasn't involved with us at all. And so I had already felt that way toward him, and I was feeling the same way toward her. And so my emotional eating, I'd go to Grandma. I could tell Grandma anything that I was feeling. Grandma's way of fixing everything is food. I got you. I'll make you something. It'll be okay. I'll just go make you something. And that's where I gained that habit. Something's going on. I got to go get food. Is Grandma available? Where's Grandma? I got to go get food from her. And over time, it's caused a power struggle with us, because when I've gone on these like random diets, she gets mad at me because she's like, you're not eating my food. What am I doing wrong? Like, what is she doing wrong to me? And and it's my grandma. I can't tell her, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to eat your food. That's not what it
Yeah.
is. Um, but that's been our struggle. Is every time I go to
Yeah.
grandma's, it's like, okay, what'd she make today?
Yeah.
Throughout my journey with you, it's been okay. Now I see when I go to my grandma's, I'm automatically running to the kitchen to see
Right.
what's there. And it's only been recently that I've realized that that's what I do. And so it was a struggle to say, okay, well, I can't go to grandma's. Well, no, I can't not do that. I just have to make my day different when I go to grandma's. I'm going to grandma's to visit her. I'm going to grandma's to tell her how my day is. I'm going to grandma's so she can visit with my kids. And, it doesn't always have to be about eating. And I actually finally sat down with her and said, I'm on this diet right now, but I'm not considering it a diet. I'm just trying to eat better. Can you help me? And I mean, she's grandma. She's like, of course. How can I help you? What can I do? And so we talked, and my grandma makes my protein for me. I said, you love to cook. I will eat your food, but can you make me this? So every week she makes me my chicken thighs and my ground beef and, my steak. And she gets excited. Now I walk into her house. She's like, I got a really great deal on steak this week, so you're getting steak. I'm like, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But it's been a journey with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember having the conversations with you about grandma's house, right? Because it was always like, I'm losing weight, great. And then you'd come in and be like, what's going on?
Yeah. I went to grandma's.
I went to grandma's, right? And and we see it a lot. We see it a lot too in the Hispanic culture. I have some Italian friends when I was in the East Coast, and there's a lot of Italians out there, and they all talked about the same thing. They all talked about grandma making pastas and everything from scratch, right? And it's traditions that go on for a long time, and it's a way of showing love, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that love kind of led you to, gaining weight, and it was a matter of becoming aware of what the problem was. We had to identify where the problem was coming from, because it wasn't that you weren't able to lose weight. It was, we just need to identify where that weight was coming from.
Yeah.
And so we started tracking our steps and figuring out, okay, so where are we overeating? Are we overeating outside? Are we ordering food? No, we're going to grandma's. Okay. So we know that grandma's house is where it goes down.
Yeah.
Right. And we tried different methods. And once again, there's no perfect solution when you go down this route. It was like a lot of trial and error. Right. I think one of your biggest fears was having that conversation with grandma, right? Communication was, I didn't want to upset her. I didn't want to make her feel like I don't love her, which is, you don't want to hurt her. But once again, it's one of those things that happens a lot where we're afraid to have this conversation, and we make a big deal about it, and we avoid it, and we avoid it, and we avoid it. And the longer we wait, the more difficult it becomes to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I gave you this book too. It's called Crucial Conversation. And it talks about stuff like that. So like how to have like very important conversations. And one of the things it tells you in the book, it's like, the longer you wait, the more difficult it's going to become. And then you have this conversation, right? We talked a little bit about how we can position it so it wouldn't come off the wrong way. And then you get the complete opposite of what you thought you were going to get. And she was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And you're like, oh my God, I waited so long to have that conversation. And most conversations go like that, right?
Yeah.
And so now your grandma makes your proteins, and so we shifted the reason why we went to grandma's, right? I remember us talking. It wasn't because I'm going because I'm hurt.
Yeah.
I'm going because I love grandma and I love being around her and I want her to spend time with me. And so sometimes just changing the reasoning helps with that as well. And so you figure that out. Now, through this entire process, the last 2 years, we've been laying this foundation with you, and we started digging into, all these internal problems. We talked about the anger. We dealt with that. We worked on the food, and we fixed that. The other part that we fixed was what was the other one? It was being around or making friends,
Making friends.
making
Yeah.
friends, which was quite difficult.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you and I had very similar stories, or struggled in similar areas, and then we kind of found each other, and through conversation, we're like, oh wow, I'm going through the same thing too in a different way, right? But one of the things that I've struggled with the most is also making friends. Like I'm not the most friendly when it comes to that. Even though I'm in this place filled with so many people, I'm not the type of person that's gonna go out and just, hey, do you want to be a friend? Do you want? Starts a conversation, and so I challenged you in that area too.
You did.
What was that like? What were some of the first things you did?
It was super scary. My husband, the whole time that we've been together, he jokes around that he's my only friend, and yeah, I laugh at it, but it's like when I would think about it, it's like, yeah, I don't have very many friends. I could probably count all my friends on one hand. And it's like the people that I want to connect with, like, I wasn't putting enough effort out. I wasn't necessarily feeling like I had a lot to contribute to a friendship.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to talk about with
Right.
someone? I was like, what do I do other than go to work and go home and be a mom? But it's like, but those are things that I can connect with people. And that's what you were saying. You were saying just talk about your kids. A lot of people have kids, just talk about them. Or I brought my son to some of the hikes, and then he starts talking to someone like, oh, that's your mom? Okay, I'll go talk to her, But that was hard for me. I was like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know how to start this, But I told my husband the other day, because we went to the summer challenge party, and I go, I literally walked into that party and I knew everybody. And I could say hi to everybody. And I had a short conversation, I was like, I felt so proud of myself on the ride home.
Yeah.
Because that was completely different. It was like I walk into the gym now and I'm like, oh, hey, you. And I know people's names. And I know that knowing someone's name makes a big difference. Because if somebody walks in and they say, oh, hey, hey, girl,
Yeah.
it's different than, oh, hey, Nicole. It's like, oh, yeah, you remember
Yeah.
my name. We've had a conversation like, okay, we're closer than just, oh, hi.
Right.
But I've definitely made an effort in the last couple months to try to make connections with people. So when we go on our walks or something, I try to gravitate towards someone, and then, we get into a conversation. When it comes to my kids, my son does jiu-jitsu, so I know some of the moms there, and we talk about that and our kids. I've made friends with all of the parents in his classroom, so I plan play dates, or this summer we're going to the pool, so I've had pool dates, like, okay, let's go. I've definitely been making an effort to get out, and it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I have people to talk to.
Yeah.
Now.
being social is very difficult, especially if you're an introvert. It's very challenging. But you have to be intentional. And I think that was a big thing that we worked on is, okay, what are the circles that we already in? Where do we have some commonalities? Where can we go into where there's a higher chance that we're going to have a successful conversation? Because, right, we talked about, like, having a conversation, you have to add to the conversation. Otherwise, it goes nowhere, right? Like, we usually get, how did your day go? Good. I'm like, great.
Okay.
What did you do today? Nothing. And I'm like, all right, well, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I remember we spoke a little bit about even, like, thinking about what you were going to bring to the table that day, and just figuring out like what that conversation was going to be like. And at first you might have, it's almost like you have to practice it in your head, and you get nervous, and
Yeah.
because it's something that you're not used to doing. But what came out of it, right, as we fast forward now, this has been probably like a year that you've been practicing this, and it's practice. Like it's
Is.
not like it just happens natural, right? And you still get nervous through it. I get nervous when I go into open spaces where I don't know people, and I'm not the most social person. I'm usually the last person to talk, unless like we know each other or I know what I'm talking about, then I'll be the first one. But to have a random conversation is not that easy,
Yeah.
and but what's cool about it is that now that you're able to have these conversations, and that you found out that if you can remember someone's name and remember the name, you know how that feels with you.
Yeah.
By someone remembering your name, you know what that feels like. And so if you're able to do that to every person that you meet, it makes them happy. People want to be known, right? And when they hear their name, it's something that makes them feel good. And so now, as we started this journey with you, we worked on the food, we worked on becoming more social, we worked on the anger, right? We're laying this foundation. And then activity was the other one. Activity was the big one, because what I tell a lot of people is, if we're making change, we just can't look at the food, right? You already went on a diet, you lost 40 pounds, but then you gain it all back.
Yeah.
Why is that? Right? Because the lifestyle is not there. You haven't become that person that is supposed to be 130 pounds, right? And so I remember telling you, like, be the person. What would a 140-pound person do? What does that lifestyle look for that fit person? And I like calling everybody an athlete, because it changes the mindset as to how you view yourself, right? Like, and so we started with Wharf to Wharf. Was it Wharf to Wharf, the first event that you did?
With the gym,
Yeah. So we started with the races, and that was challenging.
Yeah.
Right? I remember trying to get you a run, and you struggled with it. But how did that go for you? Because you were coming to the gym, and you were using the gym as a way to lose weight, right? And we had that mind shift where we said, stop looking at the gym like it owes you, right? And do it because you want it to better your health, and do it because you're an athlete. And we played around with your training as well. We realized that you were very strong.
Yeah.
You found strength. I think that was the first one, which everybody knows about your 300-pound squat and your 300-pound plus deadlift.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? What was that discovery like for you?
It was very eye-opening. So I was still kind of stubborn in the gym. I wanted to just do the one-on-one. I was like, this is what's working for me. I don't want to change anything, I was still kind of fighting you. Okay, you need to go walk outside. Okay, yeah, sure.
Right. Yeah.
But I got to a point that I was plateauing again, and I was like, okay, like, I need to figure out how to fix this. And instead of trying to fix it on my own, I'm communicating with you and telling you, okay, this is what I'm doing. So I finally said, okay, I need to trust the process. You know what you're talking about. I haven't been at this point ever where I have more control over my life, and it's not just, okay, I'm going to change this or change this. It is a lifestyle change. Like I said, I don't consider myself being on a diet. I say I eat better. When people say, oh, you lost weight, like, how'd you do that? I eat better. I get more activity in the day. I make sure that I do my walk every day. I make sure that I make it to the gym at least 4 times a week. I am being accountable for myself because I have a goal, and I know that I can reach it, but I have to put in that work. Mm-hmm. My husband came to me and said, okay, you've been to the gym for this long. You're still not at the number you want. you need to figure it out because you're throwing money away at this point. Like, what are you going to do about that? And I said, okay, I'm going to tell Christian. I know we focused on everything around the number, like everything else. I want to focus on the number. And so when we sat down, I said, okay, but you got to put the effort in. Okay, so I need to up my steps every day, and I need to make sure that's on point. I need to add different activities that are going to stimulate me rather than just being on a treadmill, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say, okay, the group's doing a hike, okay, I need to go. You know, I tell my husband, I'm going to go for the hike. I'll be back at this time. Like, you do what you need to do with the boys. I just need to focus on this right now. And he said, okay, I got you. You know, as I see everybody signing up for the Spartan races and the Wharf to Wharf, I was like, okay, that's something that I can work toward for the next month or so, or, you know. And now I have a goal. I've learned that I need those short-term goals to keep me on track. If it goes too long without having something that I'm focused on, I'm going to lose the momentum. But that's just me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned that with all these activities. And then you got me into the classes with Jordan. I was so against that. I've done
Mm-hmm.
classes before. I was like, I never get the one-on-one. I don't feel like I'm getting anything out of it. You know, you asked me to do a few
Right.
classes with him before. I'm like, no, I'm good with the one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I went into the classes, and everybody is so supportive. Everybody's happy you're there. There's no judgment at all. And everybody's in there for the same purpose. They want to reach whatever goal they have. They're trying to up their weights, or they're trying to lose their weight, or, you know, they have their goal and they're all focused on it, and they're all excited for you to hit your goal too. And Jordan and Gio, as the coaches in there, I still feel like I'm getting a little bit of one-on-one. You know, they come around and they're like, oh, your form's a little off, fix this. And then, you know, and I never had that in classes before. And I think that was kind of my trigger. What, like, why did I avoid the classes here for so long? You know, I was so stubborn on
Once
that.
again, like the conversation, right?
Yeah.
We hold off and we assume,
Yeah,
and then it's like we find out that it's something completely different.
I know.
Yeah, that's and you know it goes down. I remember having that conversation with you, and you were like, I need to lose weight, and I was like, okay, well, are you ready to have the real conversation, right? Like, then I need to coach you in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to coach people in a direct way. And I've learned that with, you know, coaching, I don't want to say general public, but not coaching non-athletes, people who are not used to being in an athletic world. When I played college sports, it's very direct. You do it or you get out. It's pretty straightforward. There's no convincing, like, hey, do you want to work out today?
Yeah.
It's like if you don't show up and you're late, you're out of here. Like there's no in betweens. And when I first started coaching people, I was like that, and it works. Obviously, it works because the people who follow that type of coaching, they get results. It's pretty straightforward. You follow a diet, you don't make excuses, you do the work, you get the result. But where I got a lot of resistance was that I was young and I was naive, and I didn't really pay attention to people's lives. And I remember people telling me like, oh, just wait till you have a kid. Like, you don't even know what that's like, right? And I was like, yeah, whatever. Just wait. And I actually remember when we had Luca, one of the biggest objectives of mine was I'm going to prove all these people that even though with a kid, I can still stay in shape and I can still do all the things that they say they couldn't. And at first it came off like that and it sounds a little arrogant, but now I realize like, no, now I have a reason to practice at home so that I find the solution for all of you.
Yeah.
And so I kind of changed the narrative on that. And, you know, I do a lot of I do a lot of trials. I share a lot of what we do with Luca and how we do it. And having him has allowed me to really understand a little bit more about parents and how to deal with that, and not be so aggressive on like, hey, you need to do this, And that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to work with you is work on all the other areas first so that we can establish a good foundation. And sometimes we just wait till you're ready to turn on.
Yeah.
And it's happened with you. It happened with Laura as well. She came to me and I told her, okay, well, are you ready to be coached in a different way?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be very direct. There's no in betweens. It's either you did it or you didn't. And we're going to just go off data, and that's how we're going to be coach you from here on out. And that immediately made the switch. But without the foundation and without establishing that relationship, you would have probably been like, this guy's an asshole. Like, I'm not, and a lot of people do think at the beginning, because I come off a little bit direct. But we had to become very strict in a sense. And what you were doing before, unfortunately, wasn't enough. It was good enough to that point.
Yeah.
Right. And then we had to
Then you have
go
to
up
up
another,
it.
we had to go
Yeah.
up another level. And this happens a lot. Every time we adapt, we have to race it, and we have to keep racing ourselves. And that's a message that I like to share with everyone, right? Like if it's not working at the moment and we feel like we're doing a lot, like we might be ready to take another step, right?
Yeah.
And it just means that we have to pay attention to what we're doing, be realistic with ourselves, become aware, track data, and then go from there. And so we started increasing your steps.
Mm-hmm.
We started modifying your food. We started, restricting some of the outside foods.
Yeah.
We created smaller goals, which helped a lot for you. And then all of a sudden, weight starts coming off.
Yeah.
But now that this weight is coming off, like, how is it different than the first time you lost? Because you've dropped 36 pounds. And once again, a lot of people hear the number and they're like, oh my God, like, I wish I could be her. But it hasn't happened overnight, right? It's been 2 years for you to get to here. And then there's the other side of where somebody's like, well, I don't want to wait 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like it was worth the wait?
I think so. I think at first, like, I was nervous to tell people, yeah, I lost 36 pounds in 2 years. Because it doesn't sound like a lot. But when I think back on it, I have focused on so much growth in the last 2 years. I can honestly say I am happy right now. My stress level is like so little right now. My sleep is high. I have nights where I don't wake up anymore. Like, I mean, having 2 kids, you're waking up all the time when you hear a sound, and now that's not a problem. Now I know if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm wide awake, something was off the day before, whether it was food or stress, like something was off. I've worked on my schedule. My little Google Calendar has everybody's schedule, and I know what's going on the next day, what to prepare for. I plan the day ahead. I plan my food for about 3 to 4 days, so I know exactly what I'm eating. Everything is under control. My work schedule, I work per diem at 2 hospitals, so I make my schedule based off of what everybody else is doing so that I'm comfortable with it. So I have a grasp on everything. And so when it came to, okay, just fix the food and, and it'll continue, I'm so happy with the progress that I've made. It's like I look back where it was 2 years ago, and it's crazy to think like what I was putting my body through, what I was putting my family through, and thinking like, okay, well, this is just how it is. Like, I just have to deal with it. Moms deal with stress, but mom has to be in control. Mom has to know what's going on. And that's what I have to do, Like, that was okay. But thinking back, I'm like, I don't know, like, how that lasted as long as it did, without a huge blowout in the house.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy at where I'm at after 2 years. I'm so excited for the rest of the year to see where I'm going. I am happy with my family life. I'm happy with my kids' life. My kids are excited to go out. I'm excited to show them, everything. We did our 1K race with
Yeah.
the kids on the 4th of July, and that was amazing. They both completed it. They both
Yeah.
were so excited. You know, Benny wants to do another one. He liked it. It's like I am excited to introduce my life that I've been working on in the last 2 years to them now. They came in the gym while I was finishing my workout, and they just had a ball, like,
Yeah.
with everything in here.
Yeah.
Benny's like, "Mom, this is a fun place to be,"
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah.
"Yes, it is."
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, it took 2 years to get where I'm at, but I don't see it going back to where it was.
Right.
I don't see, like, it ever being as bad as it was before, and I'm happy about that. I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's been some big years for you. I talk about you a lot with Andrea, and we talk about, some of the stuff that we work on. And, obviously, I always tell you, hey, sign them up. We're doing this, sign them up.
Yeah.
Because like I've always told you, you're fully capable of doing anything that you set yourself to. It just takes time and it takes work. If you follow the plan, right? Show up to the Saturday runs, which you have.
Yeah.
You went from, a 12:30 mile to a 10-minute mile. And then the other day we ran 8-minute half miles, right? Like 8-minute pace half miles,
Yeah.
right? And so it's once again, like, you look at the numbers and it's like, oh, I would love to be there, right? But only you know how much work you've put into it.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's you just have to show up. You got to leave all the excuses aside,
Yeah.
and you have to show up and do the work.
Yeah.
And that's what it really comes down to. And once again, then you're just a living example, right? You're not going out and telling your kids, you need to eat better, you need to be more healthy, when mom is not doing it, right? Now your kids are just, wow, my mom's a superhero. She lifts all this weight, right? She signs up for a Spartan race and carries buckets, and like you were doing the rope pull, and it was so cool to see how easy you were able to pull those sandbags. And then you sign up for the 5K, and then you sign up for the 21K, right? So you'll get your trifecta for the Spartans, which is when you complete the three races in a year. And then you're signed up for the half marathon at the end of the year. Your kids are doing 1Ks, and they're already probably signed up for the next one, right? Your husband's doing jiu-jitsu, and your kids are doing jiu-jitsu. And so when we take a step back and the way I hear you speak, it's like that is the lifestyle that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? That those are the changes that we want. And like I've told you before, the weight loss is just going to be an effect of everything that you're doing. Because if you're able to do the half marathon, like I'm obviously going to push you to do the marathon. Well, what is that going to that's going to require more training. What is that going to mean? That means that you're going to burn more calories, right? You're going to and so we'll have this conversation in a couple of years again, and who knows what you'll be doing.
Yeah.
So it's the journey. It's all about the journey. And it's amazing that you share your story, because I think, like you said, even though 36 pounds in 2 years doesn't seem so exciting, it's everything else that comes with it that is the exciting part. Because, I've always said it, there's people with six packs that are unhappy. I was one of them. There's ladies in the bikini world, in the bodybuilding world, that have the perfect bodies, and, they're still trying to fix something. They're trying to fix their nose. They're trying to fix some type of their body that they're unhappy with. They see themselves in a different way. Like, so just the weight doesn't tell the full story.
No.
Right? And it's what happens at home. It's how you carry yourself. It's what type of career you have. It's how organized you are. It's, it's all of that put in one. Um, and yeah,
I think that was my favorite part of coming into this gym and really getting to know you. I've gone to personal trainers before, and it was just focused on that 1 hour that we were in the gym that week, and he wasn't concerned about what I ate in the other days, what I did the other days. Like, I could have ate McDonald's before I walked into that gym, and he didn't ask me.
yeah,
Every time I walk in here to see you is, how are you doing? What went good this week? What went bad this week? What is something that you would need to change to make it better? And you were concerned about what's going on in my life, what was making me happy that week, what stressed me out. Could we have prevented that stress from happening? How can we make the next week better? And that was what I was excited to tell you. I'd come in and like, oh, I'm going to tell him this. I'm going to tell him this. I'm going to ask him how to fix this. Because every time I have a conversation with you, I learn something that I can take with me. And it just made it better. It's like, okay, this is how I'm going to progress this week. And that's what I was so excited about every time I come in this gym. And I still am.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
You'll make me cry. Well, that's the Envision way right there. That's what we try to teach. And, like I tell everybody, now that you're becoming a leader, that you are a leader, it's time for you to pass it on, right? Because the only way we're going to continue to grow this is by sharing. If we learn something that we know that can make an impact on another person's lives, then we need to share that and share with our family, share with our friends, share with everybody that we can, because that is how we create change. And, this obesity problem that we have didn't happen in COVID.
No.
The more we listen to these stories, we start realizing that it's been happening for a long time. We're just starting to see a really bad effect of it right now.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, now it's with technology, it's multiplying and it's accelerating at a very fast rate. But this has been going on for a very, very long time. Yeah. And so just like we have been able to accelerate technology, we can also accelerate our behaviors, and we can also accelerate the way we change our lifestyles. And the way we're going to do that is by sharing our stories and sharing our knowledge with others, and, contributing to society. I think that's important. We have to contribute to other humans, and that is what we try to teach here. And so I hope that you can continue that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for
That
having me.
was a good conversation right there. Look at you. All right. Well, that is it for today. And keep an eye on Nicole, because Nicole's going to crush it in the next year.